I wanted to take the opportunity today to talk about a system that has had a certain level of criticism of it in the past. And a lot of that criticism I feel is unnecessary. And that criticism is mainly focused on the invasion and planetary combat mechanics within the game. So within Stellaris, we have our army system. Now, our armies, obviously, they drop down on a planet, fight the dudes down there, and then retreat. And this is all well and good. And obviously you can, of course, augment that with traits from their general. Now, what a lot of people have been suggesting in the past, for instance, is that any sort of combat on a planet, rather than being using the atmosphere or having some sort of line-related combat similar to what you would see to EU4 and Crusader Kings, should be vastly expanded and be more interesting. I'm going to go ahead and say no, that would not be a good idea, because in essence, Stellaris is a space game. It is an empire building game. And anything involving expansive amounts of ground combat with managing stuff, whilst interesting and making things a little bit more flexible, would be great. But in the end, as of right now, ground combat consists of one thing. Find a planet, have a bigger army than whatever is on the ground, drop it down, and win. And this by itself is in the context of the game is fine, but I think there is quite a lot of room for flavor in this particular department. Hence, I will postulate my suggestion, and this is something that I've been talking about to people about on my Discord channel, as well as several other people, and that is the following. I suggest getting rid of generals completely, and I will expand on this concept shortly as well. Generals, in my opinion, add an extremely limited amount of flavor to the game. The amount of generals that you use is generally very minimal. You usually don't interact as much with them like you would do with admirals, scientists, and governors. They have a very minimal impact on your experience unless they are on the ground fighting your wars. Now, why do I feel that they need to be removed? Aside from the ones that I already mentioned. In my personal opinion, an army is shaped, well, by its general, but its soldiers are shaped by the circumstances that they fight into. And you may already see where this is going. What I suggest, instead of having a general that leads an army and giving passive bonuses to what is effectively a throwaway, completely disposable system, make the armies themselves more valuable, more than their cost in resources, their upkeep costs, how much minerals you've been paying for them. I'll give you an example. For instance, we've got our Psi Commandos here. Our Psi Commandos have an army strength of 8. They've got relatively high damage. They've got morale damage as well, collateral damage, as well as other things. When was the last time you actively looked at this particular tooltip? I cannot remember myself when I've done this. When it comes to late game or even a mid game, when it comes to armies, I generally don't care about them whatsoever. And that by itself is a shame, because I feel that there is such an opportunity here when it comes to armies. Let's say, for instance, hypothetically, I recruit an army from a planet, and that planet is, say, an industrial world that is riddled with crime. Should I not have the opportunity of generating an army that has traits that would be similar to the kind of circumstances that a crime-ridden world would see? Would I not get an army that consists out of what could effectively be criminal enforcers? Give it a little bit of thought. If I have, for instance, a world that is a crime world, a prison world, should I not be able to get penal legions? If I have a little capital world, should I not get fresh, green troops that look up into society, because there's zero crime and there is a high amount of stability? A type of, the kind of soldier that you would get from, say, the film Starship Troopers, that they feel they're right and that they have nothing to that they have got to, do everything for their planet, of course, if their traits are, of course, the right thing. But also I feel that armies themselves should get traits based on the theaters they fight in. Say you have your bog standard marine, or even just a soldier or something along those lines, and they fight a massive fight on, say, a tomb world. Would that not shape the abilities of that particular army? Would that not increase their ability to fight on these tomb worlds effectively? And this way, with this particular concept, what you would get is you would have highly specialized armies to fight specialized objectives. Now, for instance, let's go back towards this army that fights on tomb worlds. All of a sudden, you would get a army that gets a trait that says, hey, we have fought on a tomb world before. We can fight more efficiently there. If we fight there again, we get better. We fight there again, we get better. We fight there again, we get better as well. And in this particular way, it does not matter. The actual value of the army becomes much higher. Let's say, for instance, in World War II, a completely green soldier arrives on the battlefield. How long will that soldier become a grizzled veteran that has seen an environment and has learned from that environment? An army, like I said, is shaped by its soldiers, and soldiers are shaped by their experiences. Now, of course, we do have an experience system in place. We currently have a soldier that, at least a army, that has the rank regular. What I'm suggesting is making the rank more important in the grand scheme of things. Give an army traits, but also in an environment where, say, hey, an army that is doing a defensive operation on a planet where it is filled with hostile fauna and it's being attacked by an army that's twice as large. Should the army that has more experience fighting on the ground in the environment that it's used to be able to destroy a green army that it's attacking, that it's being attacked by? In my experience, well, not so much in my experience, but in my mind, that would definitely be the case. The army details, for instance, when was the last time that you did something here? You can assign a leader if you want to this particular army all by itself. And you have to get yourself I believe, is this a sub-commander? No, yeah, well, now we have a sub-commander here, but it doesn't really impact things. So, for instance, this army is now being led by this commander. And this commander then, of course, gives you army morale or army damage. And that's fine. That's fine from a large point of view. But I feel that this stuff could all be replaced by individual experience from an army point. And like I mentioned before, an army in Stellaris is effectively worth the amount of resources you put into it. They are completely and totally disposable. I suggest changing this. Make armies feel important. Make them that their experiences shape the army, and that you will actually take care of them because they are an important asset in a war rather than a resource to be thrown into the grinder. I'm not talking about total war style combat modes, aerial combat, back support. That's all for Hearts of Iron, and maybe even smaller planetary scale games like Crusader Kings or EU4. On the large scale, what we have so far is fine, but the individual flavor of armies can be so much better. So here is, like I suggested, make armies matter. Give them traits. Give them experiences. Make them better in environments that they fight in more and more. Send them on parades. Send them on missions. Send them on bug hunts where they can destroy nests of non-sapient bugs, for instance. There's so much stuff that we can do here, and I don't think generals by themselves really have all that much to give an army. Because in the end, a general will die. And that brings me up to my second point. As soon as an army wins a fight, it will automatically regenerate its strength. Force armies to go home to places to give them leave. Kind of similar how ships and fleets have to go back to stations in order to repair. These, in the end, these are people, and they don't run on... They are not perfect. They still need R&R. They still need time off. Cycle in and out people of your armies. Send them back home to recover. And if they come back towards the front lines, they get a bonus to being fresh, etc. This is a game that takes place over years. Or at least with wars that take place over years. Would you really want to be away from home for years? Think about that. Send them back. This could also tie into resort worlds. Send your army to a resort world. Give them a bonus. Send your army somewhere else. Give them a bonus. Keep them on the front line for too long and they become weary, and their numbers will shrink, and thus their experience, thus their ranks will be filled up with green soldiers, thus making their effectiveness become less and less by the day. There's a lot of stuff to be had here. I'm going to go log off here. I'm going to keep you, basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up a discussion below on this particular subject, because I think armies are underused and generals don't necessarily belong in this game. And in the end, I wouldn't be surprised if they're going to get replaced with diplomats and spies at some point anyway. But yeah, get your ideas in below. Give your discussion points in below. Do you think there's value to this? If so, well, you know what to do. In the meantime, I'm going to log off here. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, take good care of yourselves, and as always, remember our troops.